Anyone who knows me will tell you that I'm always coming up with new plans and schemes, and I love nothing more than pitching my new idea to my long-suffering wife. And I'm at my absolute happiest when I'm starting a new project. But I do have a bit of a problem when it comes to starting a new project, and it's sort of less of a problem and more of a fatal flaw. This is a Canon SureShot AF7 from the mid-90s, and I stumbled across this in a charity shop a couple of years ago and instantly started filming me buying it, as I decided this was going to be the camera that got me into photography. I bought all the film necessary to use it, and I have taken it on several trips, but I have never used it. This is a second edition copy of Reader's Digest Encyclopedia of Garden Plants and Flowers, which was printed in 1983 and was also found in a charity shop. My plan was to turn this book into a plant pot by hollowing out the centre and lining it with plastic. I even bought the roll of plastic to line it with, but as you can see, it's still a book. The book I'm writing this script in right now was bought last year to journal my first full year of parenthood, and I managed 2 entries before this script. Even the channel I'm posting this video on has been the start of many a project. It started life as a second channel, but has also been a podcast with guests, a podcast with my wife. It's been a streaming channel, a channel which uploaded daily streams of consciousness and reactions, and now it's host to this video. I'm the king of starting new projects, and my fatal flaw is that I never finish them. That's really close. Sorry, I never finish them. Now, if you've clicked on this video, you probably already know this, but for anyone born post 2004, or of course, my mum, this is a Game Boy Advance. This isn't my childhood Game Boy Advance. In fact, as a child, I didn't even have a Game Boy Advance. I had a Game Boy and I had a Game Boy Pocket, and I sometimes borrowed my sister's Game Boy Colors, which I was incredibly jealous of, but I didn't actually own a Game Boy Advance at all. By the time the Game Boy Advance came out, I was just full on addicted to my PS2, and you would probably play things like this when you're in the car, but when I was on long car journeys, I would use my CD Walkman and listen to Limp Bizkit CDs as I tried to use Fred Durst's example of what is cool. To this day, if I'm ever unsure of a decision I need to make, I just think to myself, what would Fred Durst do? Or WWF DD? And even though I never had a Game Boy Advance, a couple of years ago, I got deep into a YouTube rabbit hole of people modding these things, and I thought to myself, I really want to do that. After all, I have all of the skills necessary. I am able to change the batteries in my daughter's toys, so how much harder can it be? The screens on these things used to be pretty terrible. They weren't lit at all, but now you can add backlit screens and new shells, and you can even add USB-C mods so that you can charge it and not have to put AA batteries in. But like many good ideas, I didn't actually do anything about it. I didn't own a Game Boy Advance, and then one year my friend, Mr. Cow... Did he say Mr. Cow? Or Mystic Owl? Knowing about my desire to mod one of these, bought me one for Christmas, so now I had no choice but to do it. But I didn't, and this thing has sat in a box ever since. I rediscovered the Game Boy recently, and I thought to myself, why did I never finish that project? So I went online and I ordered all of the bits necessary to mod this piece of kit. So now I guess I got no choice but to actually do it. I should have really done this ages ago. Now, it quickly became apparent that I didn't have many of the tools necessary to pull this off. And by many of the tools necessary, I mean any of the tools necessary. So I went to go and see my friend, Mr. Cow, who has all this stuff. But I did quickly become distracted by all the cool things in his office because he sells a lot of this stuff online, and I just wanted it all. Now, there's no point in me really going through in great detail what I did to mod this Game Boy Advance because there's people way more competent online that do that sort of thing. I just got a screwdriver and started unscrewing things and pulling things apart, and I'll be honest with you, I was touching the middle of this Game Boy and it felt naughty. It felt like something I shouldn't be able to touch. Now, I'm not going to lie, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to put the screen in. We were trying to make sense of the cables and we were watching tutorial videos on how to do it, but we got there eventually. And before we knew it, it was time to put the console back together and it was starting to look really cool. And the last thing we needed to do was add the USB-C mod, which
which worked really well, before we put the finishing touches on to try and make this thing look legit. And I went for the retro look here. I went for a Super Famicom shell, and I was really happy with how it came out. And then it was the moment of the truth. Time to put a game in and see how the screen looked. And it looks sick.
Now, I love the way this thing looks, and it feels really cool to have it, but I think the thing that feels even better is the fact that I started a project and I actually finished it for once. And I need to try and remind myself of that sometimes. It's worth finishing these projects that we start. I did the fake walk away thing. You knew I had to turn the camera off. You knew I was coming back.